Let's take a look at how we can use our hue saturation controls in order to modify the color in our photograph. In order to talk about this topic, I've created this demo file here, which we're going to walk through. And in this demo file, you can see that I have some colors below, and I have a hue saturation adjustment layer open right here. Now, there are two different ways that we can make color adjustments which are global or over the entire image. One is to use the hue slider. When we drag this around, it remaps all of the colors in the image. Another way is to use colorize. When we select colorize, essentially what we're saying is we want one color to take over all the colors, and you can see how that's happening in this situation here. Yet in most situations, rather than making these global adjustments, what we want to do is get really specific. So let me click on the reset button, and let's look at how we can get to make specific color adjustments. One method is to click on this pull-down menu and then to choose an option, say like greens. Then once we've selected that, we can make an adjustment. Here I'm just going to desaturate to keep things simple. You can see how I was able to quickly just modify the greens. Now, it's not always about desaturation, of course. I could increase the saturation, or I could change the color, or we could do many things. So one method involves clicking on this pull-down menu and then choosing the color that you want to work with. Now, you won't always necessarily know what color that is, so there is another helpful tool located right next door. It's this one right here. If we select this, what you can then do is click on a color in the image. It will then sample that, and it will put some parameters around it and say, okay, this is basically the color you want to work with. Great, it's now selected. Let's make some changes. Now, in regards to changes, just to keep things simple because it's a little bit easier to see, let me desaturate. If I change the color, it just looks sort of confusing, but desaturation is really easy to see. No color, there it is. Okay, so greens are gone. But then let's say we decide, you know what, I also want to desaturate or affect the yellows. How can we do that? Well, there are some eyedroppers down below, and there's an eyedropper with a plus icon. If you use that and click on the other colors you want to affect, as you can see here, it's now reaching over to those other colors, and it's applying this effect. So we now have extended the reach of this particular effect. Let's say that we've decided, you know what, actually I want to bring back some of these colors. We'll use the eyedropper with the minus icon. So here I'll go ahead and click on that, and you can see how I'm slowly bringing back the colors that we have here. In this way, what we can start to see is that we can use these eyedroppers to add or subtract colors, and we can also begin to target specific colors. Now, one of the problems that you may have noticed with my demo was this. Take a look. When I use this tool and I target my greens and say, hey, I want to desaturate those, and then I also want to desaturate yellows and oranges, it worked perfectly, right? But when I went to the option for the minus icon and said, hey, you know what, bring back some of my oranges and bring back some of my yellows, it didn't bring them back all the way. Now, why is that, and what's happening here? Well, in order to understand that, we need to take a closer look at these little color spectrums that we have here. You can see the top color is showing us the current color. Underneath, it's showing us how this color is being remapped. In this case, you can see there's a gray area saying desaturate. So whatever is green is desaturated. And the desaturating effect is most intense between these two straight lines. It then tapers off or fades off to these outer tabs that we have here. Now, we can change these values as we've seen by trying to use our eyedroppers. Watch as I use the plus eyedropper, it extends that over. Click again, it extends it even further. Now, you can also just click right in here and drag these around yourself. So I'll go ahead and drag this line over and then the transition line, and you can see how I'm now bringing back much more of my original yellows there, and the adjustment is primarily affecting this area. If I want to extend this, I can manually choose to say, hey, I'm going to bring this over, and I also perhaps want to desaturate the reds a little bit too, and you can see how this is reaching or transitioning over into the reds in this way, or I can bring some of those back and change where that is specifically modifying the colors in the image. So when it comes to getting more advanced with working with color, here are a couple of tips. With hue saturation, commonly referred to as Hue Sat in Photoshop, what we can do is we can use this tool to target a color. Then we can make a change, whether that's a color change or saturation or lightness or brightness, whatever it is. If we want to increase that effect to affect other colors, we can use our eyedroppers. We've seen how we can use our plus eyedropper or our minus eyedropper. Now, it's not just the minus eyedropper that doesn't always work well. Sometimes the plus doesn't work well either. If ever that happens, we can go down to this area, which is a bit more advanced, but it just involves dragging these sliders around in order to get really specific about the color that we're adjusting so that we can make sure we're only adjusting the colors which we want to affect. Okay, well, now that we've seen this advanced view of how we might use hue saturation, let's take all of these things that we've learned and let's apply it to an image or two, and let's do that in the next movie.